Hello everyone and welcome to the Z-Series premiere. I'm your host, Liz Knutson, Pioneer Soybean Marketing Leader, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. We have an exciting program ahead for you from the 2024 Commodity Classic here in Houston, all centered around this next era in soybean performance, Pioneer brand Z-Series soybeans. You've come to know Pioneer as America's #1 soybean brand for over 20 years, and Pioneer soybeans have always brought you more yield and better agronomics. Well, the best just got even better as a new benchmark has been set in the soybean yields with the introduction of Pioneer brand Z-Series soybeans. Get ready for the best soybeans on the market. Here's what you need to know. Z-Series brings you more yields, a 2.7 bushel per acre yield advantage over Pioneer's existing A-Series soybeans. Z-Series brings you exclusive genetics that you can only find in a Pioneer bag, with better agronomic scores for outstanding disease and pest tolerance, sudden death syndrome, brown stem rot, white mold, and more. And finally, Z-Series brings you improved protection against soybean cyst nematode and Phytophthora, as we have recently advanced over 13 new varieties with peaking source of resistance. But don't just take my word for it. Next, we're going to meet some of the breeders behind Z-Series soybeans. Let's head to the panel discussion.
Our first expert to come up here, this young lady, Liz Knutson, has been with Corteva since 2014 and filling out various roles in the company. And here recently, she actually was the Pioneer seed lead for Southern Wisconsin, as a matter of fact. And now she has evolved into being the marketing lead for the entire soybean division of Pioneer Seed here in the U.S. Let's bring up Liz Knutson, people. Yeah.
Thanks, Jerry.
Our next expert is the man. If you need any questions about genetics, about anything leading up to the Z-Series or anything, this man is definitely the one you want to talk to. This gentleman has been with Pioneer Seed since 1997. 25 years as a breeder of soybeans he's been with the company, and he has introduced varieties, genetics, absolutely dedicated to the soybean business. But more important, his passion and dedication is to make sure that he can provide farmers with whatever they need to be successful in the soybean business. Let's bring up Mr. Don Kyle, ladies and gentlemen. Tell us a little bit about what it means to be a part of this for 50 years, and particularly with the A-Series now, and now the Z-Series.
Yeah, super exciting. When you think about plant breeding and the germplasm base we built, even the breeders that were here long before me are part of this launch of this Z-Series because they built the foundation that we utilize today to launch Z-Series. So super excited to be here, be part of the Pioneer team and representing Z-Series launch.
Oh man, that's awesome. And what about with you as far as, now you've got a kind of a tough act to follow with the A-Series, which I was so familiar with, and all farmers love them. What do you think about transitioning from the A to the Z-Series? I mean, I know farmers personally, and they're chomping at the bit. They can't wait for me to come back and tell them all the good news. So what do you think, Liz?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Jerry. I would say that two things. One, we only do this once a year, right? Farming is a different kind of industry where this is a repeat purchase that across a farmer's lifetime, 50 crops, 60 crops maybe, right? Yeah. 50, 60 purchasing decisions. So to get really comfortable with A-Series soybeans, those have been industry leaders for a long time. Pioneer's been America's #1 soybean brand for over 20 years, and throughout the course of our 50-year history, we've gone from, walk me through it, from B to M, T to Y, or Y to T, A-Series, and now we've got Z-Series coming to market. We've trained our farmers, we've helped them understand that each time we bring a new series forward, it's going to bring them even more. So as much as we're comfortable and confident with A-Series, I know a lot of farmers are excited to see what's coming next with this Z-Series.
You know, there is years, maybe close to decades of research, R&D that's going into this. What was different about the way you approached the Z-Series from a breeding perspective than has been with other series in the past?
Two differences, I'd say. One, we implemented the most advanced breeding analytics we'd ever used before, driven by understanding our germplasm, being able to genotype it, and then apply all the phenotypic information that we knew. So phenotypes being the things we measure, like yield and disease resistance and plant height and lodging resistance. Those things all applied into a new breeding analytics system. And those were the things that we proved how to utilize, and then we broad scale implemented them in delivering this class of genetics. And the second thing is how we phenotype, basically starting to use new ways to capture data. And so you're all familiar with drones And so we've used drones for a number of years in our plant breeding world, but just the data we're able to capture on a broad scale and on a very frequent basis about the research and genetics we're studying.
So Liz, on your side, being in that marketing role, you're talking to all of the dealer networks, and as Jerry mentioned, the dealer network really got notified in November as well that this new series is hitting the marketplace. When you look at the differences, to Don's point, when it came to the genetic rollout, the yield potential, what big differences are we seeing now from the A series now moving to the Z series?
It's a great question. So A-Series was known for yield and agronomics. And when you hear us talk about Z-Series and when we bring it to the market, you're going to hear us talking about more. So we're still bringing yield, we're still bringing agronomics, but it's just even more than we'd expected before. So from a yield perspective, we're bringing 2.7 bushels per acre over our current A-Series varieties, which again are industry leading. So more yield. Enhanced agronomics look like additional native trait resistances. I think about soybean cyst nematode, America's #1 soybean pest. We're bringing forward 13 new varieties with a peaking source of resistance to help protect against SCN. We've had peaking in the lineup for a long time, right, Don? I mean, this is something coming from Minnesota. We've always wanted to plant peaking varieties. We're expanding that offering, not just in sort of those earlier maturities, but you'll start to see those come into the group 3s as well as some other places throughout the lineup as well. And then finally, you'll hear us talking about more exclusive genetics. So we brought forward over 50 new varieties this year. It's our largest advancement class we've ever brought forward as Pioneer, and you won't find any of those varieties in any other bag but ours, a blue and white one. And so that's a pretty cool story to tell. That's why our sales reps are so excited to bring them forward, because if I can bring 2.7 bushels to the acre more to my farmer customer, that's a real difference in their pocketbook and their livelihood for their family. And I would just add that if you think about an aha moment for the marketing team, we've been talking about Z-Series for almost 2 years now. And the idea came forward to bring a new series right at the beginning of that 2-year process. An aha moment for us was when this breeding team, when Don specifically came forward and said, hey, you're gonna want to check this stuff out. Like, this is something like I've never seen before. And I don't, ag media, you spend a lot of time talking to soybean breeders or corn breeders. Incremental progress is the goal, right? They're a dry bunch. They're looking at their data, it's analytical. So for them to come forward and say, this is the best stuff we've ever seen, we've never experienced yields like this before, we've never experienced stability like this before, that's how we knew it was different, and that's how we knew it was something we had to bring forward differently to the market.
When we were in Johnston last year, they talked a lot about genetic potential, or pent-up genetic potential, and that kind of opened my ears a little bit to think, well, one, what is that, and how does that impact the grower when they're reading something and seeing it has the genetic potential to do X, Y, Z? Don, can you tell us a little bit more about what that means, and how does that impact the farmer?
So soybeans have a lot of genetic potential inherently, but what we try to do is build in the stability for them to deliver that at the end of the season. And so not only just increasing their efficiency of turning flowers into pods, but also protecting that yield so that whenever we have environmental situations arise, which obviously the environment plays a key role in farmers' yields, and then disease resistances are built in that Liz really talked about, all of that work brings value to the farmer.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the marketing and sales rollout, Liz. So launched it to the dealer network. You've done a lot of hard work. You mentioned 2 years of planning has gone into the launch of Z-Series. Talk to us a little bit about some of those marketing efforts and what that's going to look like for growers here over the next few years.
Yeah, we're most excited to bring Z-Series to the market here in 24. So after things come through R&D from Don's team, we hand it off to our seed production folks. They're expanding the pile that we then package and bring forward. We've got our production plans baked for next year, and over 50% of our commercial volume sold in 2025 will be Z-Series soybeans. It's the largest launch we as a company have ever had. But for 24, if you're one of the lucky ones, you have an opportunity to plant some Z-Series this year. So we'll have close to 500,000 acres of Z-Series planted across the U.S. That spread coast to coast, double zeros to your 5s and 6s.
I was going to say some in the South. You're actually going to have some in the South.
Yeah, so lots of great options, and we'll get some limited looks, lots of plots. So make sure you keep your eyes out for yield results this fall, and then the full-scale launch will really come in the 2025 growing season.
Liz, I know we're sitting in a room full of reporters, and Don, I want to make sure we got the numbers right, so everybody's got those sitting at their table taking their notes. Maybe they're tweeting out headlines now. Potentially up to 3 bushels an acre increased yield is what you're seeing across the board, and 50% expected rollout by 2025. Are those the big numbers?
Yeah, so 2.7 bushels to the acre over our current A-Series leading varieties. So great genetic potential sitting right there and lots of opportunity for enhanced yield.
When you guys think about the potential of this new Z-Series and what this is going to mean for growers, you know, Don, especially with you being on the breeding side and you having that aha moment in the field, so to speak, what are you hoping this does for growers? What are you hoping they take away from this new Z-Series? What's your hopes for the future of this Z-Series?
Yeah, for me, my passion for being a plant breeder is really to help farmers. And so when we get the opportunity to deliver step change genetics like this, it's a day that makes me smile. And so I think, you know, about farmers being adopters of this new Z-Series, and especially those that are going to be early adopters, being able to get the first look at these genetics, it's going to be a great opportunity for their businesses and for their family farms.
Liz, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the impact we can have in rural communities, right? As a small town kid, knowing that every time we grow more yield on a farm, that's more dollars going back to somebody's income. And that's something that really drives our Pioneer sales reps every day. That's what drives our soybean marketing team and everybody who sits at Corteva. We're a pure play ag company. So everybody here cares about what happens for an American farmer, and that's something that, as I think about Z-Series, what a direct impact when you take 2.7 bushels times market price of beans. That's going to make a big difference, and we're really looking forward to that, both from a yield perspective, but then also that stability and agronomic traits that Don talked about. We have offense and defense coming in the Z-Series. You don't have to give up one or the other.
What are some of the specific diseases that this new Z-Series is aimed at targeting?
Go right ahead.
I'll talk about white mold first. So
Please.
If you're in the northern part of the United States or Great Lakes region, you're familiar with the disease called white mold. And it is a devastating disease for soybeans. And so we spent a lot of time trying to build in genetic tolerances. And it's not easy work because all the genes that contribute to genetic tolerance are small. So it takes a lot to accumulate them over a number of years of breeding generations. And this Z-Series launch in some of those key maturities represents a full score improvement in white mold tolerance, which is what I would call 10 years of genetic gain of the past wrapped up into one new launch class of series. So a big step change for those farmers that deal with white mold, and that's just one example.
Absolutely. So that's sort of your East River concern. As we go West River, you're maybe a little bit more concerned about iron deficiency chlorosis. That's also one that we've seen substantial gains year over year in our score improvement. Off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank on the number, but again, it's bringing even more protection than we anticipate. So good news for white mold, good news, well, I should say bad news for white mold, bad news for IDC, as well as sudden death syndrome, brown stem rot. You'll hear us talking about Phytophthora, and then again, we talked about SCN and some more Peking varieties. So tons of great agronomic improvements top to bottom across the lineup.
Well, let's give another round of applause to Don and Liz.
Don and Liz, ladies and gentlemen.
You heard it here first, folks. The next era in soybeans is here with Pioneer brand Z-Series soybeans. Want to learn more? Visit pioneer.com/Z-Series to see how these soybeans will be a leap forward for soybean growers across the country. Be sure to get a seat at the table for 2025 by contacting your local Pioneer field sales representative regarding Z-Series soybeans. And that's a wrap for today. Our Z-Series Premier event has closed. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, this is Liz Knutson signing off. Take care.